to another episode of the IBC Guys. I'm Dave. Mike is not joining us today, but back again is Tim Schneider. Thanks, Tim, for joining us again.
My pleasure.
So we got a good topic today, kind of more of an informal discussion that Tim and I are going to have, one that I'm excited about. Before we get into that, though, I want to make sure if it's your first time listening that you know why we're doing this. We do this podcast for three reasons. The first reason is to get information about the infinite banking concept out there. I wouldn't say it's a widely known concept. It is our goal to make sure that information and that knowledge is spread further. So that's why we do the podcast. The first reason. Second reason is to give implementable and applicable examples. So today is going to be more of our story, maybe a little less examples. I think those will come out kind of as we talk, but we're going to stay more on the theory side rather than the actionable side. But that is one of the goals we have. And if you listen to past episodes, you'll get a lot of those. Last week, Tim and I did taking up the loan process for IBC. That is a very actionable item. So if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it. But the third reason we exist is to get the information as far spread as we can. So if you would share it with your grandma, share it with your aunt. If you are at the coffee shop and you say, "Hey, I heard these two crazy guys talking about this thing called IBC," share the podcast. We'd love it. We're certainly not out there to get famous, but jumping back up to goal one, if we can get the knowledge into people's minds and hearts and have them make the decision, we would much rather them know what they're talking about or know what IBC is and then make a decision, yea or nay, than to have never heard about it from the beginning. So those are the three reasons we're doing this. We do have. Oh man, I clicked off my thing. I never memorized the phone number. I'm infamous for this, Tim. Never memorizing it. We do have a phone number, 507-205-2284. My email is dave@familybankingsolutions.com. Mike's is mike@familybankingsolutions.com. Tim, at this point, you probably have some groupies out there. Don't tell MC, your wife. But if you're a groupie and you want to get a hold of Tim, feel free to contact Mike or I. We'll get you the information. And Tim, I'm sure, is more, and he can speak for himself, more than happy to talk with you if it's something that you want to do, if you're listening or watching. All right, today's topic, Tim. We kind of wanted to, and I don't really know how to frame this. I was thinking about maybe how to make the title. And what I did is pose a question for the title of this episode. And the question is shame and IBC question mark. So there's two reasons I did that. First, should there be shame around IBC? Should you have shame if you don't know what IBC is? And then second, do you have that as you work through it, like financial stuff? So I tried to pose a question that will work to answer a little bit, but I thought to pose a question rather than to make an implicit statement would fit this best. So as you have kind of been boots on the ground, I made mention of that earlier. And my experience talking with people, shame often comes up when talking about IBC and maybe even in a broader context around finances. So we kind of wanted to talk about that today. And what are some things that we see? What are some things that we've experienced specifically around IBC? Is there shame? Should there be shame? Broader finance concepts. So I've kind of laid the groundwork. Why don't you take it away? What are some initial thoughts as you got into IBC? Was there shame around it? Maybe relate it back to your story. What's your initial thoughts on the framework of that discussion?
Yeah, I think there can be shame in a lot of different ways when it surrounds, financial health or the way you use your money in your family, particularly, the way you're brought up, your upbringing, your education around finances in general, and I think it's a difficult topic to talk about unless you're specifically talking to somebody like a financial planner or a banker or somebody that's the specific conversation is about that topic. When you're with a group of friends, it's a little bit more difficult to talk about that. I think that shame idea comes up, that idea of like, gosh, what if I say something that, everybody around me here knows better than me on, and I look silly. I look like I'm not, educated in a way that they are, and they look down on me for that. So I think the broader, like you said, the broader idea here is just to realize that everybody isn't in the same spot. I look at my own story. I grew up with parents and people around me that understood concepts. You kind of think about the sort of the Robert Kiyosaki rich dad poor dad sort of thought process, like, man, I can work my whole life and put money in a shoebox and think I won because I ended up being able to retire with a frugal mindset and meager earnings to be able to live out the rest of my life versus, let's use money in a better way, figure out how to create some income streams that I don't have to really pay attention to, and be able to live a little bit different life. And that's, the second one is kind of the way I grew up. So, obviously I'm thankful for that, but that understanding also only goes so far. That only goes so far as my education on a personal level goes. So even knowing what I know, you still find yourself in situations where you don't necessarily feel like the smartest guy in the room, sort of thing. Then you bring in IBC conversations to that. And
Yeah,
as you're well aware, a lot of people don't know what we're talking about or what this concept really means. And I think there's some fear around, having those conversations around people that do have some financial education and them being like, no, you're wrong. Here's why. But I haven't found that yet. Lots of
yeah,
people think about financial planning and different ways to use their money, different places to hold their money, but a lot of those are around exactly that last thought of holding money. It's whether it's a qualified plan or it's other vehicles to get you to an end. It's not really money you can use on a day-to-day basis. If you use it on a day-to-day basis, you lose all the benefits of however you've stacked that money or stored that money. So at the end of the day, I think this concept is foreign because no one's really thinking about this. No one's thinking about a cash flow system. They're thinking about long-term savings. This isn't that. So I think, these conversations are fun. I had somebody reach out after I think the first podcast. I shared that on my social media, and they reached out and said, "Hey, let's talk about our friend Nelson Nash." This is a friend I've had for most of my life that I had no idea they would have any idea what I was talking about. So I mean, other people are out
oh,
there.
that's cool,
We just need to connect.
man. I Nice having you on. You said so many good things there. I want to pick out two of them. First, to kind of piggyback on your growing up. My dad's a wonderful man. He did very well in the stock market. He knows the stock market in and out his whole life, 40, 50 years, since he became of age. He's been working in the stock market and provided for my family then and above some, and was very financially fluent, we'll say, in the stock market. I have started a land business and working in IBC, running my business through there. That is very different than the stock market. So, a person that I would consider very financially fluent, my dad, looks at me like I have three heads when I talk about IBC. And he and I have a great relationship. So it's not like combative or anything. It's just I don't get this. And he and I have had several discussions sitting down and talking through it. And I don't know what he'd say in terms of understanding. But to Tim's point, I don't know if he feels shame. I don't know if that's the word. Maybe it is. I don't know. But what I can tell you is he understands something in the stock market that I do not. And I understand something in IBC that he does not. But I would consider both of us financially fluent. So the broad umbrella of finances has so many components that really, I guess I would want to encourage the listener or the watcher. It's okay to not know about IBC. It's okay. The goal of this podcast is just that, to get that information out there. If you want to expedite or speed up your understanding, that's where we come in. We want to help in that. But I guess I would ask that you would not allow shame to be a hurdle to prevent that, if that makes sense. Don't allow yourself to say, I don't know IBC. Dave, Mike, Tim, they're not going to want to talk to me because I don't understand it. I'm just not going to give them a call. That is the exact opposite of what we want. Not that it's about what we want, Tim, and I know that's your heart as well, but it is a desire to help people with this concept. And as we say every podcast, if you understand it and then choose not to do it, that makes us just as happy as if you understand it and then choose to do it. Maybe you understand it, choose to do it, and want to do it with somebody else. We have connections. There's a lady that I just was introduced talking with her. She does IBC rights policy. She is a wonderful person. So if beards aren't your thing, Tim and I both have beards. If you're listening, if you get scared of guys in beards, I'd be happy to introduce you to this lady. Wonderful person. I would much rather you do an IBC policy with someone that you trust rather than not do one at all. So I'm rabbit trailing, tend to do that. Listeners at this point understand it if you listen to everyone. But Tim, the point is we want to get it out and we want shame not to be a hurdle. So we want you to understand what IBC is and not be afraid to ask questions. Maybe is another way to say it. So that's kind of my story. The second thing you brought up, it was at the beginning of what you were saying. Most people trust a financial expert or something like that, and they're not ashamed to talk about maybe what they spend their money on. I have a candid example. I've grown up always loving shoes. I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but I
We have.
have okay. But so I in my basement I have probably 50 pairs of Jordans that I've collected since high school. They're worth a small fortune at this point. The shoe market's kind of blown up, but I have them cellophane wrapped in boxes in my basement. People think I'm crazy. My mother thinks I'm crazy for spending money on shoes. My kids, they get Jordans for school. Who knows why? It's just a thing that's in me. Is it the best use of my money? Could I get them cheaper, like shoes cheaper? Probably. I wouldn't say probably. Absolutely, I can. But that's something I enjoy spending my money on. Is there maybe a little shame around that? Where could I use that to invest it? Sure. But should I be judged for that? No. And I guess what I'm trying to say is people speaking to financial experts, quote unquote, financial planners and things like that, they don't often feel shame. But talking to your friends or somebody else, you can potentially feel judged. I guess it's my promise. I want people listening that that will not happen. I have heard so many different stories about IBC, and people have used it in so many different ways that I would be surprised at this point if someone were to come up with a way that is unique in how IBC is used. Whether it's financing a second house, doing farm equipment, running cell phone. I've talked about that one a whole bunch. A baking company we've done. Taxes. That's a great one. If you're paying taxes every year and saving up for it, run it through a policy, pay the government, but keep that money on the ledger, earning dividends and interest. So don't be afraid to call in. I understand the potential for shame. Talking with Mike Stevens, me and my story that first time, he was very gracious, and I did feel some self consciousness asking him questions for 4 hours in Las Vegas, but he was very, very patient with me. My guess is your story was similar to that too, Tim. Just the patience that exists in making sure you understand before you make a decision for your family. That's our promise to you. And I guess I want to make sure, hopefully it's a bit implied. I guess I want to make it implicit, a statement that that's going to be what we would do. If you're talking to Tim, if you're talking to me, if you're talking to Mike. So again, I just went on a long-winded diatribe. Anything come up for you as I was chatting?
Yeah, a lot of great points there too, Dave. The thing that I kind of was thinking about in my head is just experiences I've had where I felt like people were um, judging. You kind of use that word, judgment, and I think there's
Yeah,
no better way to illustrate that than taking to social media. I think about. I'll give
yeah,
you an example in my life. Is that we in our small town and in a lot of small towns around us in southern Minnesota here over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, it's become a phenomenon. If you open a garage door in a neighborhood, there's about a 7 in 10 chance that there's a side by side in that garage. In a lot of different places of the country, call those different things buggies. So I've heard people even call them cars on social media. But I'm talking like Polaris Ranger, Can-Am Defender, those types of machines. Four wheel. a lot of times
Like a
four door.
souped up go-kart that you can jump hills in,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You all know what I'm talking about. But you sort of get excited about those. We've had those and not had them, several times over the last bunch of years. But looking at those and, jumping on a Facebook group where people are talking about, a specific brand and model, if it's something you're looking for, or you own one, troubleshooting, stuff like that. But long story short, you start to see conversations about like, hey, what are you guys paying in, Tennessee for this machine? And then they get on the topic of the price, and then they get on the topic of like, what are you seeing for interest rates and things like that. And that's where it goes haywire. People get on there and say, man, if you can't afford this to pay cash for this thing, you shouldn't own one, and
Yeah.
things like that. And it just gets completely out of hand. And I certainly don't have any moral high ground here, but there's been times where I just comment like, do the math of if you kept that money in a, any sort of, holding tank, if you will, and you were getting, 4%, 4% versus what it costs you to finance that, you'll find that you're way smarter to finance it than to pull that money out and have it stop working for you. And then of course you really get to talk about things. So some
Yeah.
people agree with you, some people don't. It can get wild, and it just illustrates our point that there's a lot of different points of view. There's a lot of different, right answers to this. And frankly, I think the best answer to that, the whole thing, is get yourself a whole life insurance policy with a mutual company, and start an IBC policy, and that's the best way to go about that either way.
I mean, yeah, you and I are of the same mindset. And I'm going to try and say that just a different way, pull a Davism. But you're accomplishing the same thing. You're buying the side by side. But to your point, it gets hairy when there are many, many different views on how to do that. And I would say that's where potential shame comes in. There's a myriad of different ways to save, quote unquote, for retirement. I'm not necessarily wanting to save, and you kind of mentioned this earlier. I want my money to continue to work for me. I'm not going to set it in a box and save it. I understand that thought process, but why would I save my money if I could have my money, a dollar, make me $2 or $3, and then recycle that process? What systems exist there? And that's what IBC does. It is a cash flow system that as you run your money through it, eventually you'll put in a dollar and you'll be able to pull out $3 or $4 down the road and go use it as you would want to. It is a money generator for cash or finances you're already going to spend. So I know we've said that many, many times in this podcast, but just to reiterate, that's exactly what it's doing. So the side by side is a great one. Yeah, you and I have talked about it because it is something I kind of noticed. I mean, we were driving down the road coming back from the fishing trip, and there were 2 or 3 or 4 of those things behind us. So we kind of got on the discussion, and you mentioned it even then, like it's a cultural thing down there. So I can't say we have that where I live. I'm more of a city boy, but who it doesn't matter really the thing, right? It's there's always something. Social media is often good for three things, is what I tell my daughter. It's good for bragging about who you're with, bragging about what you have, or bragging about where you've been. It can be much more powerful. I mean, we're on social media. I'm on there to try and connect with people. Hopefully, I'm not bragging about those three things, but often that's where it goes. And that's, I think, maybe where shame can tend to creep in with our how our human brains are wired. So I have written down one more thing. I want to kind of transition. It's not in IBC, but I wanted to give another example of maybe where I have felt shame, Tim. So in our business, we started a land business. That's not new to anybody who's listened to past episodes. But I am formally trained in education. I spent, I think it was 18 years as a high school math teacher, then an administrator, both at the elementary level, middle school level, and then at central office, where eventually I was in charge of an entire school district's state and federal reporting. So if I did not do my job, the district didn't get any money. So it was an important job. I needed to make sure my T's were crossed and my I's were dotted. But we got into the business world, and confident in myself as an educator, the business world is not education, Tim. I know you know that, but it was holy smokes, how I have so much to learn. So what I often found is as Jess and I, my wife, were working through our business, we were often at, well, why aren't you doing this? And I would throw my hands up and say, I didn't know existed. I don't have an answer for you. I mean, pick an answer, A, B, C, or D. I didn't have a response for that because I'm not trained in that. So there had to be some humbleness there, some saying, okay, I don't know. Will you help me? And I've found more often than not, people are ready and willing to help. Some said no, which is fine. That's their prerogative. But as I humbled myself and found my way through it, we have a business that is cash flowing to the point where it supports our family. But I certainly felt shame in that. Along that story, though, Tim, is IBC. And that's been a piece to the puzzle of running our business through those things and monetizing the money that would otherwise have been leaving our business. And uh, Tim, or excuse me, Mike was a gracious part in that. And again, having sat down and helping us understand it. So that's really our goal. But I don't know if you've experienced anything. I know you've done lots of things. You kind of shared in your story. You've done several different jobs. Do you have another example maybe of shame or anything like that sprung to mind as I talked?
I think it's not necessarily an example, but just a thought process of like, you're exactly right. Over the course of my 50 years, I've done, a lot of different things, law enforcement, real estate, uh, different kinds of passive income. I've done commercial real estate ownership, residential rental type stuff, short-term rental like VRBO. Like, we're dabblers. We have the drive to do a lot of stuff, and I think one of the things that stuck out while you were talking there is like it's okay to feel a little bit of shame or humbleness around the idea that you don't know everything, but I think that's actually the key. The key is, be humble, uh, be curious, ask questions, learn along the way. Don't be afraid to fail. I mean, those are all kind of cliche things, but that's real. I mean, I think the biggest shame that a person could have is wishing they had tried all these things over their lifetime and not actually doing anything about it. I mean, that's what I would feel shame around is if I felt a drive to go out and learn, like you and Jess have with the business that you're running now. What if you had that idea and didn't do anything about it? Like that to me is where I would feel shame. It wouldn't be around not understanding every piece of it before you start. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway from all of these conversations is start. We've talked through that with Mike on a different podcast. Like, what does everybody say once they get a policy? Is like, man, I wish I would have known about this 20 years ago, and I wish my policy was twice as big as the one I started. It's just like, but the key takeaway to that is you can't have those regrets unless you actually start. The only
Yeah.
regret you can have later if you don't do anything is that you didn't do anything. So I really think it's okay. It's okay to not know everything, but to like jump in with both feet and go get something accomplished. I mean, I look back at, starting the, I have, it's kind of a little bit of an investment group with a couple of my brother and another buddy that we own several properties together. Started with a farm, almost 20 years ago now. And had we not done that, we would not be in the position we are now with multiple properties. So, and I
Right.
don't say that to boast. I just say, man,
Sure.
if we hadn't have said yes once, we wouldn't be where we are now. We had to start somewhere. And that wasn't with a big basket of knowledge and knowing exactly what the roadmap looked like ahead. It was just like, we're going to do it and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, you made the statement. If you don't start, you wouldn't have the regrets. I'm going to add to that. If you don't start, you won't have the successes either. I think that
Mhm.
speaks directly to your, starting with a farm, that single property, and it's grown. But had you not started, it wouldn't be where you are. The other thing you talked about failure. Failure is a scary thing. I don't like to fail. I think you and I have talked about that. So that's been very difficult. I've had to fail quite a bit as I've transitioned into this business thing. But the reason I bring that up is because the goal of the three of us, Mike, you, and me, is we're not selling policies. By definition, I am selling insurance. I hate that. I hate that title, Tim. There's nothing against that, people who do that for a job. So it's not, I want to be known as a guy who helps people with IBC. So it's much less to do with the insurance and much more to do with the desire of how I want to be identified. But the goal is not to sell insurance. So once your policy is done, I talk to many people that as soon as their policy is in force, is what it's called, they have never heard from their agent again 5 years later. Really, that's where my hope that the relationship starts. We get the vehicle. Let's learn how to drive it. Mike likes to use an airplane. Let's make it a race car, an F1 car, because your money's going to go so fast, Tim. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But let's start learning how to drive this thing together. And that's where the relationship starts. So talking about failure, it's not okay, I got my policy now. I'm scared to use it because I'm going to fail. We want to be there along the way. Call it a Sherpa. We're climbing Mount Everest to financial freedom. Man, I'm full of good analogies today, Tim. But if I'm a Sherpa, we're climbing the Mount Everest to financial freedom. We're going to help you along the way. And let's talk through some situations. Let's talk through some theory. Let's plan out maybe in the next 3 years. This is what you're going to do with it. All those things excite us just as much as talking about getting the initial policy. So failure is really not an option. And we build these things pretty much bulletproof. When I say pretty much, they are. You can't really mess them up. So with all that said, there's really no reason not to start. And you won't have the successes until you do start. But you're sitting there maybe thinking, this snake oil salesman Dave is just selling me a bunch of goods. That's great. I'll put you in contact with somebody else. Maybe you need to have a third party person that is not associated with the IBC Guys podcast. Like I already mentioned, this wonderful person I met the other day. I'll put you in touch with her. Maybe you need a female presence to help you with IBC. I don't know, whatever reason. Doesn't matter. I'm happy to help how I can. I think I mentioned last episode, I had a friend who I met in a different business capacity. They're shopping around different people. There are other people that do this. And I encourage that. Find someone else that does IBC, talk to them. I don't know, maybe they're running it a little differently. I don't know how you kind of beat ours. Our desire is to help people. My hope is their desire is that too, but they may be running it as a full-time job where we're not. And there's different capacities and components that come with that. So all that shame, hopefully, shouldn't be a hurdle in this. And to your point, Tim, really the encouragement is start. That's the encouragement. Take some action, get started, get rolling. So again, I get going because I think I get excited. And like I said, I was throwing out the good analogies. I didn't have those planned. Those were of the Lord, maybe. But what any other thoughts that came up as I was talking?
Uh, Probably, but I
Yeah,
just,
no, I'm with you,
I'm learning
Bob.
as much from you as everybody else that's listening. So I'm sort of just locked into what you're saying and not thinking about what I'm going to say next all the time, unfortunately for the listeners. But I think you're exactly right. The excitement part is it, and it's fun to be in a room. I think I shared that example. Um, very first episode I ever did of just being in the room and hearing a conversation that I wasn't even a part of, where somebody had a really good reason to use an IBC policy, but the person that they trusted to give them advice on financial stuff wasn't, they don't know about it. So they just were like, kind of threw their hands up and like, there isn't a way to do this. There's not enough time, in an account for this money to do what it needs to do. I might just as well keep it in my checkbook. Well, it's hard to like sit still and
Yeah,
not just blurt out the answer, right? It's just when you have something like this that you have some knowledge of, it's hard just not to want to share it with the world. And of course, that's what we're up to here.
yeah.
So it is fun and it's exciting and it's easy to, we always talk about, this might be a short episode and we talk for, 30 or
We
40
all yeah,
minutes
we
every
always
single
go
time
10 minutes. Yeah.
because you get excited and three more things come into your mind. But, I think around policies themselves, there's only one way to screw this up, and that's not to start. Like we talked about a little bit before. Um, there's a million things you can do with a policy once you have one. There's absolutely nothing you can do without one.
Yeah.
You got to start
That's a
somewhere.
great point. And even, well, someone could be out there thinking, well, what if I stop paying? There's ways around that. We
Mhm.
have different methodologies where your policy remains in force and you can still utilize that thing. So there's like you said, there's 18 different things we can do with it, but we can't unless it's started. You got to start one, and then those 18 options come into play. Let's say you meet a hardship. I can't pay this year's premium. Great. We got solutions. We can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Which one sounds best to you? And let's make a choice and let's run with it. So the last point I have written down is anecdotally, in my experience, the biggest hurdle in people getting started is exactly what we're talking about. It's hesitancy, it's shame, whatever's stopping them. They don't want to feel like they don't know what they're talking about. That's what I get as the biggest hurdle in people calling in. I just I don't know enough to make it worth your time. I heard that the other day. I sit around and talk about IBC all day. I mean, I love doing it. Give me a call. Mike, I've shared so many times. Mike will turn a 10-minute conversation into an hour. He loves to talk. So you're not going to take his time up either. He loves to make those connections and to build understanding. I will also add this to that side, Tim. If you are a financial guy and you think uh, I may want to challenge them with some finance stuff, give us a call. We love talking through those things. I'm hopeful you can come up with a question we haven't heard. And I'll tell you what I do. When I get a question I haven't heard, I just call Mike Stevens. That's what I do. He has read pretty much every book about everything and has a response. And just like he has, I don't think there's a question I've asked him he hasn't known. But I do know if there is one that comes up, Mike doesn't go to Google to find an answer. Mike goes to the vice president of companies to find answers. He'll hate me saying this, but Mike knows everybody, and I tease him all the time about it. And he just rolls his eyes at me. Maybe you've experienced that too. He'll be walking through town and hey, it's Mike Stevens, and he'll start a conversation that'll last a half an hour, and you got to be somewhere 10 minutes ago. So he has the people and the resources to find any answers. So again, if you're a finance person and you want to, parallel something in finance versus an IBC policy, let's talk about it. And it's not a challenge like IBC is better. It is we've thought through pretty much everything that can be thought through. Here's the answer to it, and then it's you get to make your decision. It's not well, you should do IBC, you're dumb. It's here's the answer, take it for what it's worth and then go do what you want with it. That's kind of the mentality of how we operate in our agency. We want to get the information to you so you can make the best decision possible. So all right, I got through my little notes here, Tim. Anything you want to add? We're kind of running out of time. We got about 6 minutes left. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think in this episode we've gotten pretty clear about what the end result needs to be, and that's starting. But I also want to be crystal clear about the fact that like we're not asking somebody to blindly follow us and just give Mike or Dave a call and write a check. Like what we're talking about is like start the conversation. Let's figure out what your need is. Let's design a policy and talk through it in a way that makes sense to you and fills the gap in your financial life. And let's go from there. Like we understand there's a conversation that may last months before you do literally start. But when I say start, I mean the conversation.
I love asking you, do you have anything else to add before you end? Because I can't end it any better. So we're gonna end it on that, Tim. So it's a fun topic to talk around in that we want to encourage people, and I have fun encouraging people. This is much less a shame topic and much more of an encouragement. Don't let shame get in the way. Find some actionable thing, whether it's to call, whether it's to go research somebody else talking about IBC. If you want to write in, send an email or send a text and just say, hey, can you point me in the direction of other good IBC podcasts? We got you. If you say, hey, I reached out to somebody else, would you look at this and give me your feedback? With no pressure of ever doing a policy. Happy to do that. To Tim's point, we just want to have that conversation. If you never write any check to anybody, but you understand IBC, our job is done and we've done it well. And that's the goal. So if you want to call or text 507-205-2284, Dave at FamilyBankingSolutions.com, Mike at FamilyBankingSolutions.com. In the show notes is all our social media. I know I was dogging on social media earlier. Hopefully you're not seeing any bragging about where we've been. I haven't posted any fish, our walleye from our fishing trip. Maybe I'll have to brag about how big our walleye are, Tim. I may have to throw one or two of those up there. But hopefully you
Man,
see that.
if you're gonna brag, I would brag about the fact that you're a internationally acclaimed golfer. Like
Oh
I
my
would
goodness.
imagine that the ladies Tuesday night league is still talking about that performance that you put on in Manitoba.
Yeah, because I couldn't beat anybody in the ladies league. No, I I'm not. I went out the other day. It was this past weekend. I had a buddy from Chicago come out, and I took the scorecard from the cart, so the cart boys didn't see how poorly I had played. We'll put it that way. So again, talk about shame. Everybody feels it, different capacities. Don't feel it around finances, or don't least at least don't have it stop you from finding out more about IBC. And we'll end it on that. Tim, it's always a pleasure. Can I share what happens on Wednesday?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like
Why don't
it
you
needs
share
to
what
be.
happens on Wednesday?
Well, I think it's been a number of months that this conversation's been happening about these puppies at the Stevens household, and the I think from the point where the dog went off to get well, we can make it a little less racy. Anyway, they're
Okay.
having puppies, uh,
Yep.
and and that process took place, and it's been about 7.5 weeks at the time we're taping this episode, but I we're going to be bringing home the male from that litter on Wednesday. There'll be 8 weeks on Wednesday, a day after this probably is released. So that'll be a new experience for us. They are the cutest things
Oh,
ever.
so cute.
We talked about like if Dave ever came up and brought his kids and they played with those puppies, they're either leaving with a puppy or they're leaving the kids behind, one of the two. So
Yeah.
we've been out there a bunch of times and played with him. His name's Boris, and he'll be
Great
coming home
name.
on
I
Wednesday.
love the name Boris. Love it.
Yeah, he's a
And I
cool
if I
dude.
can add, your dog, your male, looks like a Boris.
Yep.
Like he's like a bruiser. And he's so cute. Mike sent me a video of him trying to get up steps the other day. And I'm sure he's past it at this point. Like he's jumping up them. But he was just those hind legs were going and so cute. So I'm excited for you. And you said you and MC are fully prepared for the puppy coming in, right?
Oh, I believe I'm just looking in the other room here. I think we've got everything Amazon sells. So if you're a person that plays the stock market, Amazon should be skyrocketing here in the short term.
Or if you need cardboard boxes and live in Tim's area, he's
Right.
got you covered,
If you're
right?
moving, hit us
Yeah.
up.
Well, I appreciate you joining, Tim. I'm excited for you and Boris. So I'm hopefully you can give me some updates in the next couple weeks here about how y'all are doing, and maybe send some pictures of how he's growing up too. But
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
super cute. The female, super adorable as well. But for the listeners, we never really went and visited, so I don't know how much I can say I won the bet. But we are not getting a puppy. Now, this maybe is Mike's to share, but I'll share it anyway. Their other dog is working to get pregnant as well. So another litter is coming potentially. So we're gonna have to go through the whole temptation again. So we'll see. But yeah, very cute. So tell MC thanks for letting me steal you for the day. Mike will be back hopefully next week, and it's always a pleasure. So hopefully we have you back on soon. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. If you're listening, we'll catch you on the next episode.